What is going on, everyone? It's Justin here, and today I'm going to be talking about the new MacBook Pro 14 and 16 inch, as well as the M1 Pro and M1 Max chips that was just announced at Apple's event today. And honestly, this is probably the most exciting launch so far this year for someone who is in the creative space. I edit videos every single day, and also for like photographers out there, people who do coding, or essentially anybody who demands a lot of power, because the improvements are absolutely impressive. Last year's announcements of the M1 chip already showed the amount of capability that Apple had with their own silicon, but this year really does take it to the next level. And on top of that, the hardware of the MacBook Pro has been redesigned to have like a new look to it, a little bit rounder on the bottom, raised feet. The display is also a little bit more squared off. There is also a notch, but more real estate as well. And on top of that, from a functionality standpoint, there are also more ports, SD card slot, MagSafe coming back, and fast charging. And there is just so much to talk about. So if you guys are wanting to see an unboxing and also some full coverage of this MacBook as soon as it comes out, as always, make sure you go ahead and subscribe to the channel, drop a like on this video, and also leave a comment down below as to what you're most excited for of this new computer, and also have your post notifications on because I try to get that out as soon as possible. So in this video, I'm going to be giving you like an overview of the computer, all the features, because there is a lot to cover, but I'm also going to go on Apple's website afterwards and go through some of the specs and some of the small details that I noticed when configuring the computer to just give you like some insight as to which model is probably going to be the best for you. So for starters, there are two chips, the M1 Pro and also the M1 Max. The M1 Pro comes in at up to 10 cores of CPU and up to 16 cores of the GPU. It has a 200 gigabyte per second memory bandwidth, and essentially what unified memory means, for those who don't know, is that it actually combines the GPU and also the system memory into one, so that it is kind of theoretically two individual units that operate independently, but the unified memory aspect is what gives you that great performance. On paper, it is essentially 2 times faster than the M1 processor, and the dedicated display engine is also really nice, so you can process some external displays without cutting into the GPU and like general CPU performance. It is also a 5nm process, so what we really noticed on the first generation of M1 is not only that the power was already really good, but also the fact that it is very efficient in terms of the battery life, and also very compact, because we saw the M1 chip on the iPad, which was very impressive, and that was the same chip that you find on the MacBook Air, the MacBook Pro, and also the M1 iMac desktop computer that came out very recently. The M1 Pro chip is able to support up to 2 Pro Display XDRs, which is the 6K resolution. And overall, I think like for any user who's looking to get the new MacBook Pro and has been waiting for the redesign, the M1 Pro is probably going to be enough power for you, because it is a significant improvement than the already impressive M1. I think what was a little bit surprising though, and what I'm personally so excited to test out though, is the M1 Max. And this right here is able to give you up to 400 gigabytes per second in memory bandwidth and up to 64 gigabytes of unified memory. So that is essentially 4 times of what you find on the M1. And I already found that the M1 computer was pretty good for video editing overall, and was able to compete in some tasks to my $20,000 Mac Pro that has like 16 cores. So 64 gigs of unified memory is definitely something that I have very high hopes for, but on top of that, it has a 10-core CPU and up to a 32-core GPU, which is pretty insane, because the M1 had up to an 8-core GPU and an 8-core CPU. The M1 Max is able to give you up to 4 times the graphics performance compared to the M1, and 2 times faster video encoding, and it can actually support up to 3 Pro Display XDRs. And I think for creatives, what the biggest impact is with this new M1 Pro and also M1 Max chip is that it actually has a dedicated media engine, which is hardware accelerated H.264, HEVC, ProRes, and also ProRes RAW, which comes with a video decode engine, 2 video encode engine, and also 2 ProRes encode and decode engines on the M1 Max model. So for anyone who is in like video editing, you know that ProRes is like a high quality video standard that I personally use in all of our videos after we convert it in DaVinci Resolve, and then we work in Final Cut Pro 10 editing in ProRes. And to have a dedicated media engine that works with ProRes is very impressive, because in the past you've seen options like Afterburner that goes in the Mac Pro, but this right here embedded in Apple's own silicon is probably going to be very impressive, and I have to actually get the computers in and try them out out, but I'm really excited and have very high hopes for that, especially in Final Cut Pro. But also in the event, they talked about 4x better performance in DaVinci Resolve as well with the Apple Silicon. On the hardware and design aspects though, in some ways the MacBook Pro 14 and 16 inch is designed in a way that we kind of expected, but there were also a few things that were definitely a surprise. I would say it's like a bit of a hybrid of like the old and the new. The bottom of the MacBook does follow more of a classic design. It's a bit more rounded, and it almost kind of looks like the white MacBooks back in the day that had like the flat edge on the top but had a rounded off bottom. And I also noticed that the feet are a little bit higher, and I'm guessing that is to improve the overall airflow of the computer, which is always very important and can really factor in the performance itself. On top of that, you also notice that all the ports have returned, and that is something that we've been waiting for quite a while, and there's many years that Apple really did minimize the number of ports, but it is nice that these are back because there's 3 Thunderbolt ports as well as the SDXC card slot, which a lot of people actually still use, and especially in photographers that is very useful. And MagSafe has also made a return. There is also an HDMI port, which is also very nice to have. Another area that you're also going to notice a big difference though is in the display itself. And in the past there was a 13-inch and 16-inch laptop, and the 13-inch MacBook Pro has been waiting for an update for quite a few years now. And now with the 14-inch model, it reduces the bezel size by 24% on the side and 60% on the top because there is a notch. And I know on like the phones, people always say like the notch doesn't look that good, but honestly I feel like it makes a lot of sense on the MacBook because it actually increases the screen size a little bit to 14.2 inches and 16.2 respectively. If you look at the menu bar of the computer right now, the middle is kind of a bit of a dead space. And so by having the notch and being able to have that menu bar in its own area and not actually cut into the actual usable real estate of the display, I personally think that is a really good change. And beyond the overall aesthetic, the actual display on these MacBooks are also very, very impressive. And anybody who is working with graphics and color and all that kind of stuff is going to absolutely love it. This has pretty much all the good characteristics of the Pro Display XDR and also the Pro Motion Liquid Retina XDR display that you find on the M1 iPad, because it is a mini LED panel, but it has a sustained brightness of 1000 nits and up to 1600 nits in HDR, which is the same as what you find on the Pro Display XDR, and it's 1,000,000:1 contrast ratio. So if you're like outside and you have a lot of light on your screen, you don't have to worry about not being able to see anything because 1000 nits is very bright. And on top of that, you also have a 120 Hertz adaptive refresh rate, which is what you find on the iPhone, the iPad, and it just makes everything feel a little bit more fluid, even if it's just in like the menus or Apple native applications. And the reason why Apple's been able to do all this is, even though it sounds like this is a very power consuming technology, with the software, the mini LED technology, and also the 5nm chip and the impressive battery life that you get on Apple Silicon, you still have the great battery life promises that you do expect out of a laptop computer. The battery life claim of the 14-inch model is up to 17 hours of video playback and up to 21 hours of video playback on the 16-inch. The web browsing expectations are 11 hours on the 14-inch and 14 hours on the 16-inch respectively. So I imagine, like, even though we have to go ahead and test it, if you're doing like pretty intense video editing on past generations of the flagship MacBook Pro, I was probably able to get like 3 to 4 hours, and I expect that number to hopefully reach like 6 to 7, which is actually pretty solid considering the amount of power and how it's really going to use every ounce when you are doing stuff like rendering and exporting. Onto like the camera and audio side though, the camera is now a 1080p FaceTime camera that is an f2.0 aperture, which gives you 2x better low light performance, and that is kind of like an expected change because the cameras on the MacBooks honestly were not good before at all. They're 720p, they looked as bad as they possibly could have, and so with the larger image sensor and the actual hardware improvements as well as like the image signal processor and all that, you are going to get a much better experience when it comes to the FaceTime camera, and we kind of got a glimpse of that in the release of the iMac earlier this year, and also in like center stage that we've seen on like the iPads that I hope make its way over to the MacBooks soon. On the other side of things, the MacBook's also done a pretty good job in that aspect over the past few years, but in this year's generation of the Pro models, there is a 6-speaker sound system with 2 tweeters and 4 woofers, which give you 80% more bass, and a lot of that is to do with the hardware itself, the processing with the spatial audio, but at the same time, the way they've channeled the airflow to really take advantage of the space, the metal, and also improve the acoustics overall. There's also a studio mic array with 3 microphones in total, a 60% lower noise floor, and also directional beamforming technology, which is what we've also seen in the past year. On top of all these like crazy hardware improvements though, there's also improvements in the SSD, which actually reads at a speed of up to 7.4 gigabytes per second, which is very impressive just for loading up files and stuff, which is already going to be very fast on this caliber of computer. But if you're video editing or transferring large files from your card on the field and all that, then that would be really nice. And also just being able to play back footage and all that, at least for like my personal uses, I feel like is impressive, because to be able to get that on the internal drive of my Mac Pro, we actually use a RAID 0, which obviously doesn't have like the best like risk adverse redundancy, but to get that on the computer is nice, and it now comes in up to 8 terabytes, but it's going to come at a cost. The base storage now though is 512 gigs for the Pro model, which I think makes a lot of sense. The other thing that you might notice in the design though is that the actual display membrane is not as thin as before, and it is a bit more squared off, and it looks like a mini iPad, and maybe eventually the iPads will actually reach that thickness. But you're also going to see that the keyboard is black, and I actually think that looks really sharp, especially on the silver model, but I definitely think I'm still someone who always gets space gray. So now we're on the website taking a look at the MacBook Pros and decide what specs and what things to look out for when you're speccing out your new computer. So the starting price of the 14-inch is just under $2,000, and the starting price of the 16-inch is $2,500. And we're gonna go ahead and start out with the 14-inch before we head over to the 16-inch as well. But you can see that the base model has an M1 Pro processor with an 8-core CPU, the 14-core GPU, and a 16-core neural engine. So that is kind of like the base model, the very base model. And for an extra $200, you get a 10-core CPU, a 14-core GPU, and a 16-core neural engine. With the actual base model with an 8-core CPU and the 14-core GPU, you take a look at the charging, and it has a 67-watt USB power adapter. But if you go ahead and upgrade over to the 10-core model for $200, you have a 96-watt USB-C power adapter, which I feel like is kind of a decent upgrade in terms of the actual charging speed, especially if you're on the go. And typically, I would say if you're already spending $2,000 on the computer, you might as well spend that extra 10% to just bump it up a little bit into the 10-core model and just get out of like the base range. But as you kind of scroll down, I feel like Apple does a very good job of getting you to continue to upgrade, because the next upgrade up is a 16-core GPU and a 14-core compared to the 14-core GPU, and that is only $100. And by then, you might as well get the M1 Max, which is another $200, and that gives you the 24-core GPU or the 10-core CPU. So I would say for most users out there, going with the 10-core CPU and the 14-core GPU just above the base option is going to be the most popular one. But if you are doing like graphics intensive work, then I would probably recommend jumping up to the M1 Max, because even though the M1 Pro is really, really good, the M1 Max is just like at another level, and it kind of surprised me that they split it up into two completely separate names. As you go down though, there is the unified memory. And I would say if you're going with like the just above base model, 16 gigs is gonna be more than enough for most people out there. And from using a 16 gig M1, I haven't had any issues at all doing like photo editing, very basic video editing, but mostly general tasks throughout the day like email and web browsing. But if you're doing like those things, then having 32 gigs is very handy. And especially if you pair it up with like the M1 Max, that is going to be very useful. And as you scroll down even more, you have your options for your storage. So this is pretty subjective. I would say typically if I was using external drives, I like to have at least 1 terabyte in the computer. But if you're very organized with your files, unlike me, then you might be able to get away with 500 gigs. So it really does depend. And even though having the fast storage is really nice and having no dongles and stuff is nice, honestly, the most economical way is just to get like external drives, and with 3 Thunderbolt ports, you're gonna be perfectly fine. But personally, I don't like to have like a lot of external stuff, so I would probably pay for like 4 terabytes or at least 2 terabytes, because I have learned my lessons in the past. Between the upgrades, if I was like a general consumer who does a little bit of like video editing, maybe a little bit of photo editing, but it isn't like 4K on an everyday basis and all that, I would probably go with like the 10 core with 16 gigs of unified memory and maybe 1 terabyte of storage, and that puts it at a price of $23.99. If I was doing video editing, I would actually still like to have a 14-inch computer instead of like a 16-inch, because it's a lot more portable, but I'd probably go with the M1 Max. and upgrade the processor, and I'd probably also add 64 gigs of memory, but that puts it at a price of $3,700. So it really does kind of depend on where you are in the industry and how much money you really do want to spend. But I feel like with laptops, it's a little bit tough because they update these things every single year, and a lot of times, like, you're not gonna be able to get your money back if you went ahead and sold it a little bit later, because there's just always new stuff coming out. But I think with the display improvements and with the ports and all that, these are gonna be absolute powerhouses for anybody who is in creative. Going over to the 16-inch model, this is where you're gonna get like the maximum power because it goes up to 64 gigs of unified memory. So by default, you have the M1 Pro and the 96 watt power adapter, and the next option is to spend $200 and get the M1 Max, which I think I would recommend in this case. I do feel like a lot of people who do go ahead and buy the M1 like MacBook Pro 16-inch though are willing to spend a little bit more money, because at this point you're already into $3,000. So going to 32 cores and 64 gigs, in my opinion, is what I would do, but you do have a base storage of a 1 terabyte SSD storage, which if you're using external is gonna be enough. So I think my ideal spec for this model is to go with the 10 core CPU on the M1 Max paired with the 32 core GPU upgrade. So pretty much the highest end M1 Max processor that you can get, and then also adding $400 to get that unified memory. In terms of like the overall value they're getting, if you're split between the 14-inch and the 16-inch, from what it looks like, you're actually getting a bit of a better price by going with the 16-inch model. Because if you were to spec out the 14-inch the exact same way, it actually does come in at a very, very similar price point. So that is kind of up for you to decide whether or not you want to have like a larger computer. But I would say if you're looking for the power, then the 16-inch model is pretty easily the option to go. And as I said, I really do like this black keyboard design. I think it looks really sleek and it has like a nice contrast to it. But yeah, that is kind of how I would spec out both these models. And for the 16-inch, you're probably gonna be like in the $3,700 range. And on the 14-inch, I would probably spec it out to like just about the $3,000 mark. So now that we've talked about the MacBook, aside from some new colors of the HomePod Mini, the AirPods 3 is probably the next most exciting thing. It finally got a redesign and it just has some like improved features. Apple was a little bit broad in terms of like the sound quality side of things, but I am interested to see how that is improved because the AirPods Pro did have a bit of a better sound quality than the standard AirPods. And personally, I actually don't really like the silicone tip on the AirPods Pro, but I understand for noise cancellation that it is necessary. So I've been waiting for the AirPods 3 for quite a while because it is probably the one that I'm going to be using the most. It essentially looks like the AirPods Pro minus like the silicone tip. The case looks very similar. It does have the IPX4 sweat and water resistance rating, which is very good, but I never really had any issues with like sweat resistance on the previous generation AirPods. But it also has adaptive EQ and also Dolby Atmos support, and I find like those optimizations that are able to kind of adapt based on the shape of your ear really does curate the experience a little bit better. The battery life has also been improved to 6 hours, and with the case, it gives you up to 30 hours, which is an improvement compared to the 24 hours that you find on the previous generation. And it starts in at a price of $179, which is about $20 more, but you do get the MagSafe support and wireless charging, which I think a lot of people do appreciate to go with the other like devices and accessories that you might have. But I do hope that the iPhone at some point does have reverse wireless charging compatibility. So other than that, if you guys are excited for the unboxing of all these products and to get a first look as early as possible, make sure you subscribe to the channel, drop a like on this video, and let me know what you're picking up down below, and I'll see you all in the next video.